lately I've been missing you more. I know you have important things to do in other places, but you've been away for a very long time now. I thought you'd at least stop by and catch up. I guess it's given me time to adjust. I have a stable job, some close friends, and I feel much more at home in this body. I am still a bit restless, though, and I'll still go on a nighttime drive every once in a while. I'm seeing more of those fucking things. The things that hide on the outskirts, quietly feeding on poor, unsuspecting people. It's weird, because they show up more than when I started going on my drives. Maybe you're needed much more in the towns I visit than wherever you are right now. This one night, as I was eating a pastrami sandwich, sitting at the window-facing bar of a shitty 24-hour deli, I saw this man across the street. He walked into a video store, and all the lights, TVs, and other electronics turned off as soon as he crossed the threshold. The store stayed dark for a couple minutes, and when everything turned back on, the man left the store followed by 4 other people. They all walked in this robotic way, like they had the same pre-programmed path. It was fucking eerie. And that's not the most fucked up shit I've seen. I don't know. I just think your services could be of much use where I am. And again, I fucking miss you. I'm not gonna lie, every time I drive, I'm looking for you. Keeping an eye out for a misplaced diner or suspicious thrift shop. For yellow and blue. For the shape of that man with the bug eyes and the funny little mustache. I haven't found you yet. Obviously. I think I might look in the last place that makes sense. The place you'll probably be at some point. I don't know if I'll wait for you if you're not there. And I don't know how long I'll wait before I leave. But I know I'm gonna drive there tonight. I've made up my mind. If you can hear me, somehow, please meet me at the glass house. This night, at sundown, I started my journey towards your home. I had a hard time remembering the twisting, convoluted path. When I did, I sketched it out on a spare napkin and brought it with me in the car, resting it on the cup holder, glancing down at it whenever I was unsure where to go. The zigzag path through downtown was easy enough, and that highway stretch was a piece of cake. As the route became more rural, the directions became harder to follow. The long, country road where I had to keep veering off into snaking side paths only to turn around when they ended at someone's farm or an empty field began to get on my nerves. Then there was the fucking cornfield. At least there was a path through it, but it was barely wide enough to fit my car. And I could hear the stalks of corn rubbing against the windows and doors the entire time. The cornfield spit me out onto an empty neighborhood street where I had to drive on the wrong side of the road. Only when I reached an intersection could I return to my lane, and then I had to loop around the block 7 times. I don't want to seem like I'm mad about the commute, but its eccentricities can be pretty fucking annoying. Those feelings took a backseat, though, as I thought about the possibility of seeing you again. After the loops I just went straight along the street until I merged onto the highway. As I drove, I realized it was the same highway I'd been on, just going the opposite direction. I left the highway off an exit ramp and found myself on a forested road that took me up a mountain. As I got higher, the road got narrower and more precarious, and when I looked to my left I could see the sheer dropping to the trees below. As I reached the top of the climb, I started to see a large parking lot, followed by an old, wooden bridge. I looked down at the napkin. It took me several laps around the parking lot to find the right spot, but eventually I pulled into the one labeled 7 on the ground in blue spray paint. After waiting there for 2 minutes, I reversed out of the spot, and across the bridge. Steering the car backwards around the parking lot was nightmarish, and crossing the bridge was even more so. Once across the bridge, I parked at the entrance and got out. It was a break in the trees, like a start to a hiking trail, and it had a little wooden sign that looked decades old and read Green Trail. I set off down the green trail on foot. It was a dirt path, with trees on either side that seemed to bend up above it, creating a canopy ceiling. The path was long, but it was straight, and soon enough I reached it. The glass house. It's quite a beautiful home. Long rectangular glass and concrete structures, segmented into 2 parts. A modern, brutalist interior with minimalist design. From the inside the warm light cascades into the outside environment. Its geometric modernity contrasts with the natural and wild forest. It's a nice fucking home. When I reached the end of the path to the glass house, and I could see it maybe 50 yards from where I stood, I hesitated for a second. There were 2 people in the house. People I've never seen, going through it, inspecting it, seemingly looking for something. One was tall and lean, the other short and squat. They both held these objects, and they'd wave them around from time to time. I started walking around to the back of the house through the trees. When I was at the back side of the house I walked along it, looking for the back door. When I reached the back patio that extended from the second-story bedroom, I paused for a bit, thinking about how to continue. I remembered that this was the only back entrance to the house, if you could call it that, but there was a side entrance on the left side facing the front, leading into the dining room. Through the glass of the house I could see them near the dining room. The tall man with lean muscles and a sharp face, and the short, broad, black woman with round but firm features. They both wore this uniform with a black jacket lined in red, a turtleneck, and red suit pants. The shoulder pads on the jackets were wider than usual, and the cut of it was higher on the torso. The pants, conversely, were quite high-waisted. They also wore these sunglasses, and each had a different pair. The woman's were round and a bit large, and the man's were wide and thin. I didn't know what these fucking weirdos were doing at your house, but I knew I couldn't take that route. I was too impatient to wait for them to move on. I just had to say fuck it and climb up to the balcony. It wasn't very high, and with a little bit of jumping, grunting, and straining I was able to hang on the balcony's rail, and with a little more effort I pulled myself over. Once on the balcony, I crouched down and opened the door to the bedroom very carefully. Thank God it was unlocked like usual, and that those weirdos hadn't fucked with it. Once in the bedroom, I walked slowly and deliberately towards the hallway, looking at the concrete walls and the large, beautiful painting that hung over the bed. It seemed like all the lights in the house were on, so everything was lit by this bath of warm yellow glow. I entered the hallway and crouched down again, and slowly made my way to the top of the stairs. I looked down into the foyer, and into the living room on the right. The home invaders were not in sight, but the view was limited, looking over the stairs with their floating tile design. At this point I'd have to do the scariest part of this whole thing. Start to sneak down the stairs with no idea of whether or not they could see me. I started at the top, going down slowly on all fours. I could see those fuckers in the kitchen, with their backs turned to me, and all I could do was descend to the first floor as quietly as possible. I reached the foyer, and started to back up into the living room, keeping my eyes glued on the pair. As I was maybe 3 feet into the living room, they started to move into a different room and I panicked. I stood up and ran behind one of the white, leather couches, sitting with my back to it, my heart racing. All I could do was hope the dark, stone ground of the room absorbed the sound of my footsteps. I sat there, listening to them intently.
I don't think they've been here, Wanda,
said a smooth but deep voice.
and I don't think they're coming here either. It would be a stupid decision.
They'll be desperate and weak. They've been drained for years. They'll need to come here and replenish,
said a slightly higher, slightly smoother voice.
How much longer are we gonna have to wait here before you're satisfied?
Asked the first voice.
until they show up,
Replied the second.
I don't agree. I think we should leave and return later, once they've let their guard down.
They'll know we've been here, though.
Good.
A false sense of security.
Or an onset of paranoia. Listen, let's just stay here for a bit longer.
God, I hate this place, though.
I know.
Like, the fucking architecture.
I know.
There was a silence for a bit. I crossed my fingers hoping they'd fucking leave. I knew now that whoever these people were, they were after you, and that might mean they were after me. This high-pitched buzzing, almost a whirring, started to fill the air, followed by a beep.
I'm getting a call,
The deeper voice said. After a couple minutes of ahas, okays, and we'll be right there's, the smoother voice asked.
What was it?
We're needed in Oklahoma.
Damn. Are they gonna send another unit over to the house?
No, they've determined it's okay to leave the house unmonitored.
Okay, fine. But if something happens that could be prevented by sending in another unit, you owe me something.
What?
I get to wear your glasses.
Okay. They won't look good on you.
Shut up.
They continued to talk as they moved towards the front door. Fucking finally. I started rubbing the sweat off my palms on the knees of my pants, and preparing to stand up again, when I heard the smoother voice say,
Did you hear something earlier?
Like what?
The deeper voice asked. Footsteps. The smoother voice replied.
I think I did. Is there someone else in the house?
The deeper voice seemed confused.
If there is, it's not your Gamesh.
The smoother voice said.
Where did the sound come from?
The deeper voice asked.
The living room.
The smoother voice said, and footsteps moved toward the couch.
I think there is someone here,
said the deeper voice.
There's, I think, a human.
Really? That can't be right. That doesn't make sense.
Leave you fucking assholes. Was all I could think as my heart beat in my neck and my nails dug into my palms.
I think there is,
said the deeper voice.
Hey, human, if you're here, show yourself. We're not going to hurt you,
the smoother voice said loudly and firmly. For some reason I didn't believe that.
Okay,
the smoother voice said, and I heard that high-pitched whirring again. The couch flew away from behind me, and I fell to the ground. I looked up to see the short black woman standing above me, holding that object in her hand. She had it pointed at my head. Behind her was the taller man, who had his object out as well, but it rested at his side. I began to speak, but before I could do so, I heard that annoying tone, felt this pressure in my head, and then I died. As I floated up, above my body I could see blood pooling out of my nose and mouth. I thought, well, this is it for me. But I didn't feel that cold, hopeless and endless sensation. And once I was about 7 feet above my body I stopped floating up. Instead something strange happened. I was somewhere else. It was a highway tunnel, completely abandoned, at night, with its yellowy lights shining so bright it gave me a headache. I walked down the road, feeling so small. You don't realize how fucking wide the roads are and how high the tunnel goes until you're not in a car. I didn't know what was happening. Was I dead? Was this an afterlife? But something felt different. I felt distinctly alive. Maybe more so than when I really was. As I moved forward I changed from a walk to a run. I ran and ran. But the tunnel seemed to be endless. Then I saw it. My body, laying limp in the middle of the road. It looked the same as when I'd left it. I rushed over to it, kneeling down to get a closer look. Then I looked down at myself. I didn't have a body. Not in the traditional sense. It's hard to describe, but there was a form similar to a human. And it was shifting, interconnecting pathways, like concrete roads. And light, undulating and twisting around the highways of itself. I looked back at the body. My body. And I touched it. I felt warm and tingly and my head began to spin. It felt amazing. I remembered the feeling from before. When you saved me. I touched it for longer and longer and I began to sink into it, the world spinning around me. As the world blurred I began to come into consciousness. Conscious of this place, at least. I was laying on the ground in the glass house, blood pouring from my nose. I sat and looked out the glass wall, wiping the blood away from my nose. The fucking people, the ones hunting you, they were gone. But you were there, walking down the path towards the house. You were in your favorite form, and you were walking slowly. You seemed sickly and weak, and you were dressed in an odd way. Black slacks and a white shirt. It's something you wouldn't usually wear. I waved at you, and when you saw me you waved back. I got the door for you, we hugged, and you asked me what happened. I told you I'd tell you if you told me, and you said I should go first, and that you were very weak. We sat at the dinner table, and I told my story. And now, I want to hear yours.